Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep on a story that's, well, it's captivating, to say the least. We're going to be taking a look at the life and mysterious death of Gene Hackman, a true Hollywood legend.
A legend, for sure. And, of course, we're going to be talking about his wife as well, Betsy Arakawa.
Yeah, Betsy was a talented pianist. And, you know, most people probably remember Gene from iconic films like The French Connection, maybe Unforgiven.
Yeah.
But his life off screen was pretty fascinating, too. A real mix of, well, grit and grace, I guess you could say.
Definitely. This is a guy who, came from a pretty tough background.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. A turbulent childhood, served in the Marines, and then ended up, carving out this incredible career in Hollywood, becomes one of the most respected actors of his generation.
So from the Marines to the big screen, that's quite a jump.
It really is. What gets me, though, is the contrast, between the characters he played, these tough guys, and his actual personal beliefs.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
Like, here's this guy, famous for playing Popeye Doyle, surrounded by violence in so many of his roles.
Yeah.
But off-screen, he was actually a pretty vocal advocate against, guns and violence.
Huh. Bit of the paradox, isn't it? Makes you wonder if those roles ever, weighed on him.
It's a good question. I mean, his performances were so raw and authentic.
You really were.
Really makes you wonder if it was all just acting.
I mean, maybe if we kind of dig into his journey a little bit, we might get some clues.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So let's go back a bit. Hackman was born in San Bernardino, California, 1930.
Okay.
And his childhood was, well, it wasn't easy. Parents divorced when he was young, moved around a lot, ended up living with his grandmother for a while, even dropped out of high school.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was actually during his time in the Marines that he kind of discovered acting.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's where it all began. Interesting. Do you think his time in the service, do you think it influenced his acting style at all?
I think so, yeah. There's a certain intensity, a discipline that also comes with military experience. And you can definitely see glimpses of that in how Hackman approached his roles. Like, he wasn't afraid to push those boundaries, to really explore those darker sides of his character.
Okay, I see what you mean. Like with Popeye Doyle, right?
Yeah.
In The French Connection?
Exactly. He brought this gritty realism to that role, a cop who's flawed, but also totally determined. It was a whole different kind of hero than what audiences were used to back then.
And that performance, that's what landed him his first Oscar, wasn't it?
It did, 1972. And that really solidified his place, as a major talent in Hollywood.
Oh, for sure. And wasn't his second Oscar also for a role that, it kind of dealt with violence in a big way?
You're thinking of Unforgiven.
Yeah,
you're right, 1993. He played Little Bill Daggett, another character deeply caught up in a world of, well, violence. It's almost like he was drawn to these roles that let him, kind of explore the dark side of human nature, the struggle between good and evil, maybe, even though personally he really wasn't a fan of violence in his own life.
It's amazing, isn't it, how an actor can embody those kinds of roles, even if they clash with their own beliefs. He had such range. From playing tough guys to comedic roles, he always seemed to pick characters who were, multidimensional. Characters who defied those easy labels.
Couldn't agree more. He had this incredible ability to just disappear into a role, to become the character completely.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about his performance in The Royal Tenenbaums, for example. Royal Tenenbaum.
Oh, yeah. Loved him in that.
Right. He was hilarious, but then also heartbreaking, sometimes in the same scene. It just shows you how talented he was, able to move between those different genres effortlessly and still deliver a performance that really connected with people.
And then, poof.
Yeah.
Gone. Retired in 2004.
Yeah.
Walked away from this massive career. From all that fame. You don't see that every day. A Hollywood A-lister using a quiet life.
Well, I guess it tells you something about him, doesn't it? Fame can be seductive.
It sure can.
But it can also be incredibly demanding. Sounds like Hackman just valued his privacy, his personal life, more than, all the glitz and glamour that comes with being a celebrity.
Yeah. And that's when he moved to Santa Fe, right? With his wife, Betsy.
That's right. It seems they both shared a love for art, and they wanted a more peaceful life, away from all the Hollywood craziness.
So tell us a little bit about Betsy. What was she like?
She was a classically trained pianist,
Yeah.
originally from Hawaii.
Oh, wow. Wow.
They met back in the mid-1980s, got married in 91. Really seemed like they had a true partnership, a shared love for creativity and this desire to just, live a life outside of the whole Hollywood bubble.
In Santa Fe, I mean, it's a beautiful place with the art scene, the scenery. It seems like the perfect setting for that kind of life, doesn't it?
It does. They had this beautiful Southwestern-style ranch tucked away in a secluded part of Santa Fe called Hyde Park.
Hyde Park. Sounds idyllic.
Yeah, it sounds like they really wanted their privacy. In fact, their last public appearance together, as far as anyone knows, was way back in March 2024, just at a local seafood restaurant. After that, they kind of vanished, almost like they were intentionally, fading into the background.
Choosing a simpler life.
Exactly, a more authentic existence.
Which makes the circumstances of their deaths, it makes it all the more shocking, doesn't it? It wasn't until a neighbor called for a welfare check, February 26th of this year. That's when everyone realized something was terribly wrong.
Yeah, it's almost eerie, this couple intentionally living a life out of the spotlight and then suddenly this really tragic, mysterious situation. So what did the authorities actually find when they got there? When they got to the house, I mean? Well, it was definitely a scene that raised a lot of questions right from the start. When the Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the Hackman residence, they found both Gene and Betsy deceased. Gene's body was in the mudroom, and Betsy was in a bathroom near a space heater.
A space heater, okay. And what about, there were reports about their dogs, right? What happened with the dogs?
Right, so they had 3 German Shepherds. One of them was found deceased in a closet, actually, but the other 2 dogs were found alive.
Wow. This is where it starts to feel like, I don't know, a scene from one of Hackman's movies. Just this blend of the ordinary, but then these really unsettling details. So did they find any evidence of foul play? Or any indication at all of what might have happened?
Well, that's the big mystery, isn't it? Initially, when they looked at the scene, there weren't any obvious signs of forced entry or any kind of struggle. But, the fact that both Gene and Betsy were found dead, along with one of the dogs under these, unusual circumstances, it definitely triggered a deeper investigation. And then there was the prescription bottle.
Oh, right. The prescription bottle. That was found near Betsy, right?
Yeah, near her body. It was open.
An open prescription bottle. Yeah, that definitely, that's concerning. Did the authorities say anything about what kind of medication it was?
No, they haven't released any specifics about that, which is, understandable. Given that it's still an ongoing investigation, it's important to let them do their work and not, jump to conclusions or anything.
Absolutely. It's easy to get swept up in the speculation, especially with someone as famous as Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
But sticking to the facts is key.
Exactly. And that's where the forensic analysis becomes so crucial. So the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office is working with the New Mexico Office of the Medical Investigator to figure out the cause of death. They're doing toxicology tests, looking into any possible environmental factors like carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, yeah.
And they're also interviewing anyone who might have had contact with Gene and Betsy in the days leading up to their deaths.
Okay, so toxicology tests, carbon monoxide screenings. That makes sense, especially considering the dog, one of the dogs also passed away. So can you break those down for us a little bit? What exactly can those tests tell us?
Sure. So toxicology tests, those can identify any substances that were present in the body at the time of death.
Right.
So that means medications, drugs, alcohol, or really any other chemicals.
Okay.
And this can help determine if, say, an overdose or poisoning was involved. The carbon monoxide tests are important too because, carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can be fatal. And it's sometimes a factor in those accidental deaths, especially in homes that maybe have, issues with their heating systems or something like that.
Got it. So in this case, those tests could potentially show if, say, Betsy had overdosed, or maybe Gene had been exposed to carbon monoxide, or if any other substances, played a role in their deaths.
Precisely. Those tests are going to be really important in providing, that scientific basis for understanding what happened. It's not just about finding the cause of death, but also ruling things out and building that, a more complete picture of what led up to that day.
It's all about the evidence, right? And not speculation. It's easy to get caught up in wanting answers, but you have to trust the process, let the evidence lead the way.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of evidence, there's also the timeline.
Oh, right, of course.
That's something investigators are going to be looking at very closely. Trying to piece together the last few days and weeks of Gene and Betsy's lives, phone records, emails, any security footage that might be out there. And of course, talking to anyone who might have had contact with them.
I imagine that's going to be tough, though, right? Given how, well, reclusive they were. They seem to really value their privacy, limiting contact with the outside world.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor. Their desire for privacy could actually, in a way, complicate the investigation. But investigators are, they're trained to be thorough, resourceful. They'll be looking for anything, any little detail that might shed some light on what happened in that house.
Makes you wonder, what those last few days were like for them. Were they happy? Struggling with any health issues? Were they content with that quiet life? Or was there something more going on, something we don't know about?
Well, those are questions that we might never have answers to. But maybe, by looking at Hackman's career, his personal life, the circumstances surrounding his death, maybe we can start to understand the man behind the image a little bit better. The man who chose to walk away from the spotlight and embrace, a life less ordinary.
It's a puzzle, and I'm definitely curious to see how it unfolds. But for now, I think it's time we shifted gears a little bit and talked about Hackman's legacy, the work that made him a legend. I mean, his career. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. All those roles, all those characters he brought to life over 4 decades, each one so memorable. Each one really, making an impact on the audience.
It's really something, isn't it? He wasn't just playing roles. He was inhabiting them, becoming them.
Yeah.
Whether it was, that relentless pursuit of justice in The French Connection, or the chilling, just the ruthlessness of Lex Luthor in Superman.
Oh, yeah.
Or even, something like the quiet dignity of that blind man finding love again in Scent of a Woman. Hackman just had this amazing ability to convey the full range of human experience. He wasn't afraid to explore those darker parts of us, the flaws, the vulnerabilities, the things that make us human.
And he wasn't afraid to play unlikable characters either.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, some of his most iconic roles are, they're morally ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
Some are even downright villainous.
So true. Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven.
Yes.
Perfect example. He's brutal, a sheriff who, he metes out justice pretty harshly. But even then, Hackman still manages to find that little spark of humanity in him, that weariness, that sense of, a recognition of the toll that violence takes on a person's soul.
It's that ability to find the humanity, even in those really flawed characters, that makes his work so powerful. He never seemed to judge his characters, you know what I mean? He just presented them, flaws and all, and let the audience kind of grapple with all the complexities.
It's a real testament to how skilled he was as an actor. He could make you empathize with someone, even when you completely disagreed with their actions. He made you question your own biases, your own sense of right and wrong.
And he was so picky about his roles too, wasn't he?
He was. Turned down a lot of parts. It seemed like he was always searching for those projects that would, challenge him in new ways, let him explore something new.
He didn't want to be pigeonholed, right? Not just the tough guy or the villain or the comedian.
No, not at all. He wanted to be seen as a true artist, an actor who could really embody that whole spectrum of characters and emotions. And I think it's safe to say he accomplished that.
He did. I mean, look at his filmography. It speaks for itself, doesn't it? His versatility, his willingness to take those risks, his commitment to his craft. It's all right there.
Absolutely. And beyond the roles themselves, there's just something about his presence on screen that was captivating, that intensity, that quiet power. He didn't need to shout, didn't need to overact to make an impact. Just a look, a small change in his expression, it could speak volumes.
Yeah, that's what made him so brilliant, that subtle brilliance, a true master of nuance, an artist who understood the power of restraint. It really is a shame that, that future generations won't get to experience that firsthand, seeing him on the big screen.
It is. It's a loss for cinema, for sure. But at least we have his films.
We do.
His legacy, that reminder of what great acting can be.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and mysterious death of Gene Hackman, what's the one thing that really stands out to you? What will you remember most about him?
For me, it's that contrast. The contrast between the tough guy image and the quiet, private man he was in real life who chose to just step away from it all. It reminds you that we often project our own ideas onto public figures, onto celebrities. We don't always see the full picture, the complexities, the contradictions.
That's such a great point. Yeah. For me, I think it's just the power of his performances, the way he could get under your skin, make you feel things so deeply, even if you couldn't explain why. He was a master storyteller.
He was a true artist.
And his work will continue to touch people, to move them for generations to come.
Absolutely. And maybe that's the greatest legacy there is, right? To leave behind work that continues to inspire long after you're gone.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. As you go about your day, take a moment to think about the stories that have touched your life, the performances that have stayed with you, the artists who have in some way shaped your view of the world. Because in the end, those are the things that truly matter, those stories, those connections. That's what makes us who we are.